is the 2021 Ford Ranger Tremor.
And it's the off-road version of the Ford Ranger, but it's not quite that off-road version of the Ford Ranger, the one you want, the Ranger Raptor.
This is kind of a Raptor Light with some nice off-road modifications, but not some insane off-road mods like you would get in a Ranger Raptor. And today,
I'm going to review it. Before I get started, be sure to check out Cars and Bids, which is my enthusiast car auction website for cool cars from the modern era. We've had some amazing sales recently on Cars and Bids, including this Ford Raptor, which sold...
This manual transmission Porsche Cayenne, one of my favorites, which sold for just over $32,000, and this great E46 BMW M3, which sold for just over $18,000. If you're looking to sell your...
Which sold for just over $32,000, and this great E46 BMW M3, which sold for just over $18,000. If you're looking to sell your cool car from the 1980s and up, Cars and Bids is the place...
A cool car from the modern era. We have daily auctions with amazing selection at carsandbids.com. So let's talk Ranger Tremor. Like all Ranger models sold in the U.S., this uses a 2.3-liter turbo...
3-liter turbo 4-cylinder with 270 horsepower, which is a powertrain that I love.
The Tremor off-road package is offered as an option on Ranger XLT and Lariat Super Crew models with four-wheel drive, and it costs around $4,300 extra, bringing the base price for a Ranger
$2,500 with shipping, which makes this cheaper than a Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro. But then, this isn't quite a TRD Pro in terms of capability.
Some nice off-road upgrades of locking rear differential, lifted suspension, beefier off-roading tires, and more, which I'll show you. It's a lot, but it still falls short of a Tacoma TRD Pro or a Jeep
Colorado ZR2, and it certainly isn't the Ranger Raptor we've all been hoping for. But for now, if you want an off-roady Ranger, this is what you can get, and today I'm going to review it. First, I'll take you on a tour of the...
all of the quirks and features of the off-roady Ranger. Then I'll get
out on the road and drive it, and then I'll...
working on the 21 model year F-150. One thing we really got right.
Alright, time for the quirks and features of the Ranger Tremor. Now, I have already done a full review of the new Ford Ranger, which I will link in the description below. So I'm not going to go over all the Ranger quirks and features. I'm just going to cover the new stuff for the Tremor.
The off-road stuff, plus a few other highlights. But let's start with the Tremor things, and that means starting out here, I want to talk tires. The Tremor has a more aggressive off-roady tire compared to the standard Ranger, but it isn't quite as aggressive
on the F-150 Raptor, and that means better performance on the road from this tire compared to the Raptor, less tire noise, but it also means less off-road capability. Same deal with the suspension. This truck has some suspension upgrades, beefed up front
and a lift.
About a 1-inch suspension lift compared to the standard Ranger. This truck has just under 10 inches of ground clearance. Again, pretty good, but not quite on the level of the crazy off-road capabilities of the Raptor and some of its rivals. But anyways, another...
We have skin plates in this truck. You can see under the front bumper, there's a skid plate down here, metal, like you would expect from an off-roader. You also have these side steps that are fixed on the side, and they give the truck kind of a beefy, you have to climb into it sort of look.
Even though it only has 1 inch extra ground
The standard Rangers, at least those side steps kind of look cool and give it that muscular off-roader appearance. And then next, moving inside the Tremor, there's some more off-roader upgrades in here. For one thing, you have a locking rear differential. You can activate it by pressing...
And that's nice to have. A locking differential, of course, always good for off-roading driving for better performance off the pavement. You also have this set of auxiliary switches here. You can see 6 switches. They're not hooked up to anything, but the theory is if you want...
Ensure some off-road driving life.
This stuff already comes pre-wired. You have the switches right here, and then you can just hook up to these switches rather than like installing some ugly switch somewhere on your dashboard, drilling through the dashboard. You already have the aux switches for the off-roader equipment for assumed.
The real changes that make a Ranger into a Tremor, but there are also some cosmetic upgrades in the Tremor model over the standard trucks. For instance, you have Tremor stitched into the front seat. You can see here, Tremor.
You also have a Tremor badge on the rear, on the outside of the bed. You can see again.
Tremor. Although these badging upgrades don't really go all that far compared to a lot of other off-roading vehicles, TRD Pro and Rubicon and even the Raptor, it's sort of a subtle Tremor upgrade here. But there is one very
upgrade to the Tremor, and that would be the grille has these little red accents. Almost looks like parentheses on the sides. I'm not sure why they chose just that part and red, but they did, and that's one way to tell apart.
Ranger model. But if you live in a qualified zip code...
Anyway, that's all the notable stuff that comes with the Tremor. Now let's talk over some of the other interesting quirks and features, the highlights in the Ranger. Not too much of that stuff in here. This is a fairly basic mid-sized truck. It's not intended to be weird or quirky or...
Items worth noting. For one thing, this little dial in the center console, you can twist it to go into four-wheel drive, and in the center it says TM. A little confused about what that meant, so I pressed it. It stands for terrain modes, and it will let you cycle through the different terrain.
What type of terrains you're traversing. As you can see,
cycle through them on this little screen in the gauge cluster. Now, speaking of that gauge cluster screen, it also has your tachometer. Very small, digital, and just sort of over in the corner of the gauge cluster. A tiny little tachometer if you need it, but you can get rid of it if you...
You're able to cycle through various different items over here if you want to see different pieces of car information and if you don't really care about seeing your tachometer. Now, in the rest of the gauge cluster, you can see the speedometers in the middle. Over on the other side, you have another little screen, and that one shows you
media you're playing, your phone, that sort of thing. So it's sort of like...
car information on the left side of the gauge cluster and navigation, media, that sort of thing over on the right. And of course, in the new Ranger, you have a center screen, like in all vehicles, Ford's latest sync system. I find this to be pretty responsive, pretty intuitive, very...
Vehicles, Ford's latest sync system. I find this to be pretty responsive, pretty intuitive, very well refined over the years, Ford Sync, and it's pretty easy to use. I get more in-depth with it in my review of the new Ranger, which I will link in the description below.
Earlier, but it's worth underscoring, the Tremor is only offered with the full
size four-door body style of the Ford Ranger. Ford calls it the Super Crew configuration. That's the only way you can get the Tremor. So if you get one of these, you will have 4 doors and a full-size back seat.
Say it's not exactly huge back here. You can see the front seat I actually moved up a little bit from where I was sitting and my knees are pushing right into it. Obviously, if you want more rear seat room, you're going to want a full-size pickup truck, but this would work in a lot of circumstances for...
The back isn't particularly interesting or weird, the back seat area, especially unusual here, although it is worth noting you do have a household-style power outlet.
Behind this little cover, which is really nice to have, you have a couple of USB ports, but household style back here too, which is nice for a pickup and can be useful. And then next, I'm moving outside the Ranger Tremor. I have to say, the upgrades to the Tremor over the standard Ranger are...
I went over each one individually before, but taken as a whole, take a look at this truck. You can see it doesn't really look that like off-roady or different from a regular Ranger. Just some different tires, some badging. Most people won't even realize that this is the off-road model.
The Ranger, just some different tires, some badging, most same situation with the Ranger Tremor. With that said, the Ranger is a good-looking truck.
Always thought that even before they brought it to the United States, they were selling it in other markets. It's a handsome truck, looks good. I just don't think this one is particularly muscular looking, like an off-road version. Maybe could be a little bit more.
But even though this truck doesn't quite have the cool look of a real off-roader pickup or some of the off-road upgrades that a Raptor version might have, it does have one huge benefit, and that would be under here.
Powertrain. 2.3-liter turbocharged four-cylinder. When I first heard that was the only engine the Ranger would be getting, I was very skeptical. All the rivals have a V6. Didn't make much sense, but then I drove it and I am converted.
The Ranger would be getting, I was very size pickup truck, 270 horsepower. It feels great, great power and torque in all situations, good acceleration. It's just a great engine, to be honest. Great performance. I am totally thrilled with it. And the engine alone,
some of the other trucks, even if the rest of the off-road stuff falls a little bit short. Okay, those are some of the
perks and features of the Ranger Tremor.
the road and see how it drives.
Alright, driving the Ranger Tremor, the off-roady Ranger. Now before I get into the driving experience, I do want to talk about why they haven't made a Ranger Raptor yet, because there's clearly demand. You got the Gladiator Rubicon and the TRD Pro Tacoma. I mean, these trucks are selling in big numbers.
They would want to do it, but I suspect it's because they are waiting until the next Ranger. So the Ranger is about to be redesigned, even though it just came out.
Because it has been on sale in other markets for years already. They only just brought it to the United States. And so a new one is coming, and I think Ford doesn't want to put in the development, the investment into creating a Raptor version on this body style, which is going to basically go
on the next one. But I have no doubt about that. Ford has said, no, we're not doing a Ranger Raptor. Yeah, they are. Just maybe not on this Ranger. So maybe the Tremor is going to be, the best that we get. But to me, frankly, it feels like a bit of a half-hearted attempt. It's a cool
get, where you want if you're looking for one of these
off-road pickup trucks like the Tacoma TRD Pro and the Gladiator Rubicon. Those trucks are pretty capable, they look muscular, and this just isn't quite there. The tires don't quite match up. The 1-inch suspension lift, you just don't...
truck that really compares with those. Now, by the way, from a personal opinion standpoint, I think this is a mistake. I think Ford should do a Ranger Raptor on this body style.
Hot, off-roader vehicles in general are hot. The economy is strong right now. This is the time to do it, and they're going to wait
a year or two or whatever, who knows what things will look like then. It might not quite be as strong as it is. This, strike while the iron is hot, especially because it couldn't be that difficult to create one. But anyway, back over to driving experience. I mentioned earlier I love this powertrain.
responsive than the V6 that's in the Toyota Tacoma. I like that engine. That engine is pretty proven in the Tacoma, but it's just not quick, especially by modern standards. And this truck gives you a little better fuel economy. The 10-speed auto seems to do pretty well. Some people like...
Through the years all the time, I don't find that. I find it to be pretty responsive and pretty good.
I generally really like the driving experience of this truck. There are a few drawbacks to this truck. The interior is not particularly exciting or interesting or modern looking, which is a function of the fact that the Ranger was sold elsewhere before coming to the States. It's sort of like we got the truck midway.
So it's good, but it's not amazing. Not that a lot of trucks are. But God, I just love this powertrain. It just really does do a good job of accelerating this truck and moving it forward. And you just forget that you're in a four-cylinder.
Specific driving experience points, I shouldn't...
I don't find this drive particularly different than the regular Ranger. It actually does feel a little bit higher. I've been making fun of this 1-inch suspension lift. It feels a little bit higher off the ground than the regular one. I guess the tires maybe help a little bit too. But the...
The ride quality is fine. Sometimes you get into off-roader vehicles and they've made some changes to ride quality to allow for the off-road stuff. Not here. Feels good. it drives great, which is what I think about the regular Ranger too.
It's probably the best mid-sized compact truck on the market today, and if you're looking
For a slightly off-roadery one, this is that. But if you want real off-road capabilities from your truck, you're probably not going to end up with this one. You're probably going to want to go with something a little bit more serious.
beefy built, and hopefully there will be a Ranger Raptor in the next couple of years. And so that's the 2021 Ford Ranger Tremor. I love the Ranger. It is my favorite small truck on the market today.
Now it's
off-road version for people who want a little bit more performance off the pavement. It is no Ranger Raptor, the truck we all want, but it's still a good truck with some nice upgrades at a reasonable price, even if it isn't quite
looking for. Anyway, now it's time to give the Ranger Tremor a Doug score.
And the Doug score is here, 47 out of 100. You can see the Ranger Tremor beats out the Chevy Colorado ZR2 with more equipment.
In better quality, but it still doesn't touch the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro, the reigning champion of off-roader pickup trucks. I like the Ranger Tremor a lot, but it still feels like a half-hearted attempt at an off-roader version of this truck. And personally, I'd buy a TRD Pro or
Even if it's not coming until the next generation Ranger.
Thanks for watching.